Right, so now you see we're here in the flight deck of the airplane, cold, dark airplane. If you take your mouse, you can hold down the right bumper or the right button and drag it around. This is basically just turning your head around from the captain's seat. All these buttons, once you roll over them, you'll see the indicator change. That means that those are usable. As you can see, almost everything in this airplane is. That's one of the reasons why I like the Flight Factor Airbus over other ones, is it's almost completely functional. Let's go ahead and turn the batteries on. Power the battery bus. Now you can see we don't have any external power hooked up, so our primary means of communicating with the simulator is going to be this iPad here on the side. Right now we're in the service screen. Ground power unit. If you push the button, you're going to turn blue. That turns blue, and now you have a ground power unit hooked up to the aircraft, as indicated by the available light on the external power. Go ahead and turn that on. You'll hear the fans kick in the avionics bay, just like in the real airplane. Get the APU started up. Emergency exit lights on. Auto on the strobes. Might as well turn the beacon on. No reason not to. Nav lights on. Crew oxygen on. Then, of course, right up here, get the ADIRS into alignment mode. You can see that says align now. Might as well turn the fuel pumps on. I know this isn't procedurally correct, but I'm just trying to get everybody in the air as quickly as possible at this point. If you want to get procedural with it, bust out your company checklist and have at it. That's obviously something that is up to you. You can see now that our APU is available. Go ahead and kill the ground power. Give us some APU bleed. As you can see, it's just like the real airplane. It's pretty cool. Turn off the ground power. Now we can start programming the McDo. Now everything you see here is expandable. You can actually click on and enter things right here if you want to. It's a little more difficult, so what I like to do is you just click on the screen and it will pop this straight up for you. That's true of most of these screens. You can just kind of have these screens loaded up. Good thing about that is you can move them anywhere you want. You can change their sizes. Just grab the corners just like a regular window and move them around as you desire. Makes the simulation a little more useful for you. But in any case, of course, we're going to have the init page is going to be the first thing we want to look at. We're in Denver, as I mentioned. We're just going to do a quick circuit around Denver as a demonstration. Load that in, hit return, flight number, just make it up. Not a big deal. 28,000 feet, why not? Don't forget to align, of course. You don't want to have problems. Now you're going to have to notice here too on the init B page, normally we have a dispatcher that will be able to give us the numbers. We don't have that available to us, so we're going to have to go here under perf data. And here's your operating weight, passenger weight, cargo weights, that kind of thing. You can see the envelope. It's actually kind of cool to look at, but the only thing we really care about is this set button. Once you push that, you're going to see the zero fuel weight and the CG populate. Straight down to flight plan. Go off of runway 25. No published departure. Land on runway 16 left with no published arrival. Straight on to the performance page. You're going to see these little gray arrows. That means that they can be populated automatically if you push these. Our V1 speed, we have to make up one though, because that is not auto-populated. Transition altitude is set at 10,000 feet by default. Not sure why they decided to do that. 18,000 feet is normal in the United States. Thrust reduction and acceleration altitude is at 1,500 feet above field elevation, which isn't typical either. We're going to go ahead and knock that down to 1,000 feet, 6430 here in Denver, of course. Flaps, we'll go flaps 1, and again, I'm just making these numbers up. You can find actual flight data on the internet if you want to take it that far. It's really up to you. For this demonstration, we're just going to go ahead and keep it as basic as possible. So obviously, that's about all we need to do as far as programming to do. We'll come up to the FCU, because that's pretty much what's next on the list. For some reason, when I start my sim, it always defaults to 100 foot on this. So switch it over to 1,000, crank this up. Let's go to 10,000 here in Denver. And just get the FCU ready. Right now we're waiting for an alignment to happen. Obviously it takes 10 minutes in the real airplane, but we don't have to wait for that. We'll just go ahead over here to the settings. Right here is IRS alignment speed. You see it's set at some number, and I just switch it from like 5 to 10, and it seems to auto align pretty much right then. So as long as whatever the value is there, just switch it to a different one and it basically aligns automatically. So you're pretty much good to go there. All we got to do now is a couple of things to get the airplane ready so don't get yelled at from being improperly configured. Just go ahead and put a VFR squawk in there. It doesn't really matter. Really, it's just to get the transponder turned on so we're not alerted by that in the system display before takeoff. And with that, we're about ready to start up this airplane and get out to runway 25. Now, the way you push back is if you go up to the flight page, at the very bottom you'll see Show Ground Handling Window. Click that and you'll see Request Ground Service. One thing of note here is the brake is off at the moment, as you can see here and in the indicator. If it's turned on, you're going to see brakes are engaged, cannot push back. So before you actually call for a pushback, turn off the brakes, hit Request Ground Service. The guy will say they're on their way.
Okay,
you can hit straight. That just means they're going to do a straight back pushback here in Denver. You can change all these parameters and settings for the distance of the pushback, which direction, that kind of thing. But once you get them called out, you can go ahead and close that. Obviously a little bit of traffic here. It is a sim after all. So as you can see, we're getting our pushback hooked up to the aircraft. And we might as well go ahead and get those engines started. So just like in the real airplane, we'll wait for the engine page. Engine 1 up. You can click on these as I mentioned before and see them function as you would in the actual aircraft with the start valve open. Got N2 spinning up. You're going to see fuel flow come on and we'll get a light off. Just stuff you're going to see in the airplane anyway, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time with that.
Okay, safe travels.
So then he kicks off without asking if we want to set the brakes or not, so just remember to put those things on, otherwise you are going to start rolling. There's our generator. Getting a veil light here. We'll go ahead and start engine number 2. I found you don't even really have to wait. You can start both these engines at the same time. I've actually never tried that in the airplane. Not sure if the APU has enough juice to do it, but you never know. Another thing I've seen on my sim is you're going to get an air engine 1 high pressure valve fault. It's a simism. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen all the time. Once in a while it does. I guess we were lucky in this video. The good news is it's going to go away as soon as I turn the bleed air off of the APU. Get that second engine started here and then we'll get rid of it. So up we go, both engines started, APU bleed air off, master switch coming off. Looks like everything's back to normal. Alright, well, that's about it. Now let's taxi on out to the runway. Go ahead and turn the brake off. Airplane will start to roll pretty quickly. Now, I have a joystick and a throttle quadrant hooked up. I just find it to be a little more fun, definitely a little more immersive. The best thing about it is there's just a ton of buttons and switches and levers that are configurable, so it just makes it a little easier. You're not in the flight deck moving the mouse around quite a bit. You know, you can program all of these buttons. I think there's something like 80 buttons between the throttle quadrant and the joystick that I have, so depending on the aircraft, you can configure that to do just about anything you want. So obviously on our taxi out, go ahead and go to flaps 1. Got the speed brake armed already, which is great. Auto brakes are going to be at max as usual. Still waiting for that takeoff configuration page to come up. That's basically the only reason I'm taxiing out to the runway, is because as far as I know, there's no way to accelerate that, so we might as well taxi out to the runway while we're waiting for that to pop up. Pretty short taxi, no traffic, beautiful day, shouldn't be too much of an issue. There's our takeoff page now, so you can see we're still missing the takeoff config to test and the cabin check light. Just as you'd suspect, just hit the takeoff config button and you'll get rid of that indication. As far as the cabin check, obviously that's something the flight attendants would do, and since we don't have any flight attendants, they conveniently have given us a flight attendant control panel here on our iPad. So just go down here, hit cabin ready, and you'll see now that that is green on the engine warning display. So we're pretty good to go here. I guess we'll just go ahead and consider ourselves clear for takeoff. Get the lights on. Somehow I managed to push the flaps button, so pardon me for that particular issue, but now we're back into takeoff config on the way out. So you might notice this texture on the taxiway here is a little more detailed than you might have. It's just an addition that you can download through xplane.org. If you haven't discovered that website yet, it's a great resource. It's pretty much the web resource for Plane-11, and a lot of free items on there, some paid items. Actually, if you're watching this video, you probably purchased your Flight Factor A320 there at xplane.org. Going to waste any time here. We're clear for takeoff. As I said, just a quick circuit around Denver. Get it up to 50% N1, let it stabilize, just like the real airplane. There we are. Now we have it set for toga, so we move the thrust levers up. You can hear it clicking, and those are indicative of the detents in the throttles, the thrust levers rather. So you can do flex takeoff if you desire. It's really just a matter of what you want to do. There's V1, VR, kind of lumbers off the airport. Pretty fun though. Just get up on the command bars. We're in nav mode now. Go ahead and turn autopilot 1 on. It's indicated. Still in toga. 6,100 feet, you'll see at 6430 we're going to be commanded to bring back the auto thrust. Lever climb, bring back 2 clicks, thrust climb, open climb, and heading. flaps 1. Once we hit S speed, go ahead and retract our flaps here. And just like real aircraft, slats retracting, being reminded that the ground spoilers are armed. Make sure you don't push it too far back. You're going to get the speed brake just like the real airplane. Just going to go ahead and select speed at this point. 250 knots, down arrow is pull, we're now selected speed. Speed out star, 9,400 for 10,000 feet. Let's get us on a heading that's going to get us on a downwind for 1.6 here. Since we're already basically at our destination, let's go ahead and activate the approach. As far as this goes, you only need to put in the altimeter setting on this. Obviously, you can put in anything you want. Airport conditions, it's all customizable in the sim, but for our purposes right now, we're just going to put in Q&A to 2992, and we activated the approach. So you can see here, 16 left. Going to be turning onto a downwind. I think we're just going to go direct to kick me once we get around the corner, or at least a beam kick me, so that way the airplane is more likely to capture without blasting through the localizer. We are level at 10,000 feet. Obviously, we want to hit leads at 7,000. Just going to go ahead and wind this down to 7 and pull for an open descent. You can see here on the primary flight display, thrust idle, open descent. Just as you'd expect. If I didn't mention it before, there's keyboard shortcut keys that you can change many of the things. This view, obviously, that's all accessible. If you want to take a look at what those are under flight, you can go to show keys shortcut, and this will show you a list of some of the shortcut keys that you can press for different things, throttles up, down, stuff like that. You really, like I said, you don't even need a joystick to fly this, especially the Airbus, since it pretty much flies itself if you let it. Also, you go here to keyboard, and it gives you a more extensive indication of what they all do. You can also customize any of these as well. That's here in the top right under these little sliders, if you want to take a look at that. So shift and 4 puts us back, shift and 9 puts us back in the cockpit. Looks like, yeah, we're past, or at least a beam kicked me now. So we'll just go into the McDo. Direct to kick me, insert. You can see the airplane starts to turn as we get into nav. Change this a little bit on the scale.
2,500.
So that's pretty good. We're going to have about a 30-degree intercept angle on the final approach course, so that's pretty ideal for our purposes. Obviously, we don't want to cross it at 250 knots. It doesn't make for a stabilized approach. So as we get a little bit closer, we'll start leading off some speed for our approach into Denver. I'm just going to let the airplane auto land. Obviously, if you've got a joystick and some thrust levers at your disposal, you can hand fly this. It's actually pretty cool to do it. Practice miss approaches, single engine miss approaches, that kind of thing. Well, 6 miles away, 7.5 from Leeds. That's probably about time to start slowing down. We'll blow this down to about 170 knots, so it puts us safely in the flaps 2 territory. And here you're starting to see our landing config. Cabin signs, once again, that's going to be on the flight attendant control panel here. Just hit that button. And that will go away once we get a little bit closer. Coming up on 220 knots. Go ahead. Select flaps 1 on the ground spoilers. You can see we're starting to get close to intercept here. About 4 miles away from Leeds. Speed's looking good. Aircraft's rolling on in nav mode. Might as well just go ahead and arm the approach at this point. We got Cat 3 dual autopilot 1-2 low star. Obviously I forgot to hit my LS button there. Yeah, we're in flaps 2 range. Go to flaps 2. Flaps 2. Alright, there we go. Don't know why I was having such a problem with that. Now at this point, flaps 2, we'll just go ahead and manage the speed. Gears coming down. Flaps to 3. Coming up to Leeds here now, glide slope star, set our missed approach altitude, to 10,000 feet, and we can go flaps to full, still have that cabin check, so apparently at this point I cannot change that. Oh well, as far as the flight attendants go, I'm just going to go ahead and leave that. Just like any other sim, there's always a few bugs here and there. Nothing that affects it too much, but it can be a little annoying, of course. So here we are fully configured at this point. We know we're going to auto land with both autopilots engaged. We can switch the view if we want to, come outside the aircraft. It's always funner to watch it land from outside. Pretty impressed with the amount of detail on this airplane. You can see the rivets inside the wheel wells, flaps and slat tracks. Pretty well detailed airplane. Obviously it depends on how powerful your computer is to handle the graphics if you decide to turn them up to maximum levels. This actually is about a medium level for my computer, so still pretty good. Mode. Thrust levels back. Thrust reverses out. And of course we auto landed, so we're going to have to remember to turn off the autopilot. that's about it. That's all I really have for you. I was just kind of show you an introduction to the Flight Factor 320 with Plane-11. Hopefully you found it useful. If you have any questions, feel free to mention that in the comment, and I'll try to get back to you on it. Hope you found this useful. Have a good one.